It's my dream, and no one is gonna stop me. I'm gonna review One Piece and become king of the pirates. So yeah, I'm going to review One Piece and One Piece media in this channel because it takes a lot longer to edit those joke videos, especially when I get really into them. So, post or die in the YouTube landscape. So, we're reviewing the first One Piece movie called One Piece the Movie. First, I want to just say I appreciate the title of this first movie. It's not as assuming as Pokemon the first movie, and it does have a long caption like Naruto the movie, Ninja Clash in the Land of Snow. Yeah. I have known of the existence of this movie, but I never bothered to check it out. It's not easily accessible on any streaming service, and it's not even dubbed. So, I went on my own adventure and found it. Just don't ask where I went. And I wasn't too excited about checking out this movie. I've seen footage for this movie, and I was struck by how it had that late 90s, early 2000s anime movie style. It looks similar to Pokemon the first movie and the Digimon movies, and coincidentally, the One Piece movie and Digimon movie are War Game were a double feature, so neat. And I was just never a fan of movies making things slightly darker and then it's movie quality. I wonder why that is, honestly. I should research it someday. But anyways, during my research, I saw this movie was released on March 4th, 2000, while the anime was released in October of 1999. So, damn. One Piece must have been super popular to have an anime and shortly a movie announcement within 6 months of each other. That seemed like kind of a red flag to me too, having a movie and an anime within 6 months. Was it just a cash grab? But I didn't have to worry too much because I absolutely loved this movie. For this video, I'm going to first discuss the non-spoilery things first, the things that I liked and didn't like about the movie. Then I'm going to discuss spoilers later, and that's going to be a little bit of my analysis. I've gone this far without even discussing the plot of the movie, so here's the plot. The story follows Luffy, Nami, Zoro, and Usopp as they encounter an enemy who has the Goa Goa no Mi, or the Scream Scream fruit, which allows him to turn his shout into energy beams. This pirate is looking for the treasure of Woonan, the Great Gold Pirate. There's said to be an island that had mountains of gold that still harbors his treasure. There's also a kid who's looking for his treasure as well and wishes to join Wunan's crew. The Strawhats work with the kid to find his treasure before the Scream Scream Man, El Drago, does first. Non-spoiler stuff. So, I like the fact that it was a quick 51 minutes. There's obviously great care in the animation. The aura animation on El Drago is really cool. And most importantly, this genuinely feels like a One Piece episode, just with different animation. It could fit perfectly in between Syrup Village and Baratie. It follows Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Usopp, a dynamic we didn't really have a lot of time to explore on its own. Every character gets a moment to shine, and it's just classic early One Piece. Nami stealing, Usopp's lying, Luffy's eating, and Zoro's getting lost. It's like a time capsule. We see characters not really knowing what devil fruits are, and instead they call it the villain's power, the devil's power, which sounds really, really cool, and it adds to the mysticism that could be found in devil fruits in the East Blue, which we didn't get to see a lot of either. And it makes sense why this villain acts like he's divinely blessed and he's just charging up his attacks. He's really aura maxing, as they say, throughout this movie. And I like his power. It's a voice beam, and it's specific enough to be terrifying for about 10 minutes, and once you figure it out, they're done. It's perfect for a movie or a villain of the week type deal because these screams have a lot of destructive capability. In fact, the most we've seen so far in One Piece at this point of the story, right before Baratie. And he's also just a classic pirate looking for treasure, following the theme of early One Piece where some pirates are looking for gold, while other pirates are looking for something different than gold, and that's their treasure. And there are several moments in here that I felt would be classic One Piece gags that were fondly remembered if more people watched this. There's even a whole tragic backstory within this movie, but there's something utterly charming about the fact that this movie is world building and expanding within the about 70 chapters that were released at this time. So they couldn't make any big revelation like current One Piece movies do, but it was neat. Now, the negatives of the movie. I'm not a big fan of the animation style. I don't think it's bad. I just don't like the muted feel of a lot of these shows around this time period. Like GT had this muted color palette as well, and the Digimon movies, I didn't care for that muted color palette as well either. The designs of the enemies don't feel quite like One Piece characters. The strange clothing on these characters, it's like they saw Django and Kuro and said, let's change their outfits slightly, add a sash, and boom, you're a pirate. So the designs of the characters and what they're wearing, they just don't quite feel like One Piece. I did like the fact though that Golas, this fellow here, had a bounty worth 8 million and had this as a feat strength, and El Drago was worth 10 million and had this as a feat strength. So at the very least, it's established that they're powerful One Piece villains, the most powerful at this point in the series. But again, my main complaint is just that they don't quite feel like they belong in the One Piece world. But that they still work for the sake of this movie. And that's really the only major thing about this movie I didn't care about. Now onto the spoilers part. I like this movie because it feels like a love letter to One Piece at the time. You have them looking for a treasure with a pirate whose nickname was Gold. And then you had Luffy use all these really cool moves that he used against Buggy and Kuro, and he would use against Don Krieg a little bit later on. And the fact that Luffy just took a Kamehameha and just poop it away, power scaling goes crazy. The main thing I wanted to discuss were the kid Tobio, the Grandpa Gonzo, and Woonan the Pirate, who are kind of the heart of the movie and the adventure, even though I haven't discussed them much. What really makes this movie feel like One Piece is this trio. They have a dramatic backstory, their conflict's all about chasing dream, and I wanted to go into more detail here. Basically, this kid's dream is to be part of Woonan's crew, but everybody thinks that Woonan is dead. And upon hearing this, Luffy tells him, hey, my dream is to become the Pirate King. And then the kid reacts and is like, oh, what? That's ridiculous. Why don't you laugh and tell me that my dream is ridiculous too? And then Zoro's like, no, follow your dream. And what I like about this scene is that Luffy doesn't laugh at his dream, but just takes this as, oh, we're sharing our dream? Sure, I want to do so too. And the fact he didn't laugh at the kid, because he probably experienced similar things, right? He was a weak little kid who wanted to join Shanks' crew and got rejected. He doesn't think that that's a weird type of dream to have. And at the forefront of all of this is that One Piece is ultimately a story about a kid following his dream. This kid is trying to follow his dream. And thematically, they're similar in some respects. And I really do enjoy that. And then we get to hear that the grandpa, the one running the little stand that they're at, has a tragic backstory with Woonan. So Woonan and Grandpa the Gonzo were friends as a kid. And Woonan is looking at a piece of gold. And it's like, my dad worked his entire life. And this is all he has to show for it. He's not going to waste his life. He's going to go and steal gold from all the evildoers in the world. So, like, pop off, King. Rage Against the Machine and capitalism. But then he's like, I'm going to seize all the gold in the world. Which, don't pop off, King. You've already become radicalized. And he doesn't want to waste his entire life mining gold like his dad. And he takes out a pirate flag and he says, Gonzo, my buddy, become my first mate here. And Gonzo's like, gold can't feel, laugh, sing, or drink alcohol. You're wasting your time if you want to dedicate your life to stealing gold. And he's like, your dad taught me how to make Odin, and what's really important. He's a decent guy. I'm gonna make the best Odin in the world because of him. And Woonan is like, my dad is a drunk. He's like, your dad's all right. And they fight, and they end up over a cliff held on by the pirate flag that Woonan made. He drops to his great injury as he wakes up from a coma 3 days later and sees that his friend is gone and living a life of piracy. And so Gonzo was like, I'm going to make the best Odin, which I pour my life to, and I'm going to make sure that Woonan tries it. And then we get back to the present, and then the villain steps on the food. Luffy picks it up and eats it, remarking how tasty it is. Another callback to when Zoro ate the onigiri for the little girl that was on the floor. And well, I'm not going to spoil the whole movie and the rest of the saga as it pertains to that scene. But I do want to say I really adore this whole backstory. It's so beautiful. This story of friendship that goes years and years and a person's disillusionment with the system that his dad worked hard and has a rock to show for it. So rather than live like his dad and work hard just to go home and get drunk and not care for your kids, instead tries to become a pirate, which we romanticize, right? We tell tales of how this man achieved an island of gold. And I find this really interesting in the context of his piracy days because again and again you hear people say he only steals from evildoers, and the kid backs it up, and it was said he got 1/3 of the world's gold, which probably means he stole some gold from some ordinary people. So he still has this legendary Robin Hood reputation, which I kind of found myself finding hard to believe. But then I think the movie actually wraps this storyline up quite nicely, and I don't want to spoil that as well. I just gotta say, go ahead and watch it there. Also, respect the fit. Respect it. Now, the last couple of mildly spoiler things are Double pays his crewmate gold last to kill people. He offers like 3 gold for Usopp and 1,000 for Zoro, which, damn, that's a big difference. Zoro battles with Golas in either the most terrifying or the most hilarious way, depending on your opinion. As Zoro and Golas are clashing, Zoro psychoanalyzes him. He's like, "Oh, you're ashamed. Ashamed you murder for gold. You're not a real swordsman." And then he beats up Golas. Or he cuts Golas. He's like, "Once you learn your pride as a swordsman, come back and find me." And it's like, bro, you were a bounty hunter. You used your sword for gold too. But the second my opponent starts psychoanalyzing me in a fight, I'm out of there. I'm like, whoa, okay. I get where we're at now. But yeah, that was pretty funny. And Sanji appearing in a mid-credits cameo was neat too. So this movie has everything, but let's go on to the conclusion. So, One Piece the movie feels like an early filler in One Piece. And I mean that in the best way possible. Like, if you first had Gaimon after Buggy's arc, having El Drago after Syrup's Village would thematically make sense. You have discussion of dreams, true treasure not necessarily being money, and Ian have a boat restaurant before the Baratie. A lot of the techniques have continuity the One Piece world at the time, and so this feels like it could fit in the serialization of One Piece with very little issue. My only gripes are the designs of the enemy crew and relatively minor things that don't take me out of the story. But if you ever want to experience new episodes of classic One Piece, this is the closest you're going to get, and it is absolutely worth your time. I highly recommend it, everybody. And, well, that's it. And if this seems a little less shitposty or comedic or less sharp editing, that's in part because the bigger shit posts take a little bit more time and analysis, and I want to publish in between, and so I decided to do things that I could get out relatively fast, but also still have time to edit bigger projects that I have going on. But yeah, thank you for watching, everybody. My goal is to have the next longer one out as soon as I can, and well, let's hope for the best, everybody. With all that being said, like, comment, subscribe. Forbidden Born, y'all. Peace out. Hey, out the way, Ma said. Your dad never loved you, huh? How did you know that? He told us. Oh, yeah. But it was obvious you yearned for approval. Latched onto the first old man you saw. Hey, don't say a bad word about Zeph. He beat you, though. Is that what you think love is? No. It couldn't be, because you never would lay a hand on a woman. But why? Is it because you have mommy issues too? Your mom loves seeing you cook that disgusting food and she probably congratulated you and gave you the positive attention from women you crave. You think cooking is love? It's why you don't want to see food go to waste. And no one cooks for you. So you think you're not loved by us? But Sanji, that's not the way the world works. It's okay. You don't need to always cook on demand for us. It's okay, Sanji. We love you unconditionally. You don't always need to cook. We liked you when we first met you, even if you smoked. So what? Well, that means you don't love yourself. You don't want to live and you want to die faster. You really didn't know the stigma? What stigma? The stigma balls in your face. Stigma balls in your face.